Hello, my name is Willow and you're listening to Uncle Richard.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone, episode number 448 for the 21st of May 2017. Richard Saunders here with you from Sydney, Australia. And it's the sort of weather I just love. It's fine, sunny, it's not hot, it's not cold. You can wear a jacket, you can wear a t-shirt, you can wear snorkels and flippers if you want. It's very pleasant at the moment in Sydney. We were supposed to get all this deluge this weekend, but it didn't happen, so very good. Coming up on this week's episode of The Skeptic Zone, UFOs. Oh, yes! An oldie but a goodie. I do like UFO stories. One of the reasons I got into skepticism, growing up in the 1970s, all those UFOs flying about. We're going to kick off the show with a report about government funding, federal government funding, I think it is, for a local UFO group up in New South Wales, up just north of Sydney. Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this a ridiculous thing? Find out when we have some reports, including one read by Shelley Stocken, our reporter, about this situation, and then that's followed by an interview with Dr. Steve Roberts from the Australian Skeptics, who is a UFO expert. An expert into something that is yet to be proven to exist. Go figure that one out. UFOs are out there, they're in there, they're up there, they're doing something or other. They're certainly doing something with government funding. Find out to kick off the Skeptic Zone. Following that, it's a follow-up to a story we covered in January about the National Institute of Complementary Medicines who were nominated for the Australian Skeptics Ben Spoon Award, and they weren't very pleased about that. Well, the story of their whinging and whining and complaining has ended up in the Journal of Australian Pharmacists. So we're going to be covering that, which is a sort of a follow-up to a story we did earlier in the year. Then we have Brew Ha Ha from Australia Science TV. And what are we looking at this week? Oh, Earth's accidental force field. That sounds pretty interesting. That's with Casey Harrigan. Then we have another short report from the Australian Skeptics website about pro-vaccine measures in the recent federal budget, something that's not going to please the anti-vaccination lobby. And speaking of the anti-vaccination lobby, the final report on this week's show is about a disabled boy in danger of malnutrition being removed from his parents by the police and community services. Why have the authorities acted to remove this boy, which is a dramatic thing to do? Well, find out in our report to round off this week's show. Now, there are all sorts of skeptical conventions and conferences and congresses coming up before the end of the year. We have the New England Conference on Science and Skepticism in New York, which I'll be attending. We have SciCon in Las Vegas. We have the European Skeptics Congress in Poland, Skeptical, one-day event in California, QED in Manchester, and Skepticon Sydney. If you want to find out more about all those events, I'll add a link in the show notes, and I think those links will be pretty permanent from now on, well, at least until the individual congresses and conferences and conventions and cons and everything else come to an end this year. A quick shout out to the Gold Coast Skeptics. If you're in the Gold Coast area of Queensland, why not visit facebook.com/GC Skeptics. That's facebook.com/GC Skeptics to find out about the Gold Coast Skeptics and any upcoming events. And I think we'll be bringing you more about the Gold Coast Skeptics shortly in the weeks to come. Good luck, Gold Coast Skeptics, a beautiful part of the world. But now it's time for me to run downstairs. I hope those cats aren't waiting outside the door. Sometimes you open the door and cats spring in. Cat owners, yes, you know what I mean. Time for me to run downstairs and look for those fish and chips I haven't quite gotten through yet. I think there's another serve of fish and chips. And I like to have it with a little bit of hot English mustard on the chips. And also something I picked up when I lived in Germany, a little bit of mayonnaise on the side. Yeah. Some listeners will know what I mean. Look, I'm going to run down quickly, scoff those fish and chips, run straight back up the stairs to bring you the rest of the Skeptic Zone. Is the truth out there? Is the truth up there? Is the truth on the central coast of New South Wales, the area just north of Sydney, a beautiful area surrounded by beaches and lakes and the city of Gosford, little communities. And apparently, that area is a hotspot for UFO activity. And so we come to a series of reports about the fact that a local UFO group has been receiving government funding to continue its activities. After these reports, we'll hear from Australian Skeptics UFO expert Dr. Steve Roberts. But we'll kick off with our friend and reporter Shelley Stocken. Interesting claims, questioning, take stock with Shelley Stocken.
Hi, I'm Shelley Stocken. From where I live, about an hour or so north of Sydney, there's plenty of sunny weather, plenty of golden beaches, plenty of parking, and, as ABC News reports, possibly plenty of UFOs. In an ABC News article dated Friday the 19th of May, 2017, they report, Christian Porter launches probe into taxpayer funding of UFO group. If the truth is out there, it won't be funded by the government anymore. Social Services Minister Christian Porter has launched an urgent probe to determine how a UFO group received thousands of dollars in taxpayers' funds. Mr. Porter said he was unaware his department had approved nearly $6,000 of grants for the Tuggerah Lakes UFO group on the New South Wales Central Coast since 2013. The funding, exposed by News Corp and confirmed by the ABC, was first provided by the Labor government to assist with the cost of transporting volunteers with a disability. Mr. Porter, who is an avid sci-fi fan, said it was a beam-me-up Scotty moment when he found out about the funding. I'm sure they're very nice people and there are lots of volunteers who are getting something out of it. But looking at it from my perspective, representing taxpayers, it didn't seem to pass a common sense test, Mr. Porter said. I asked the department to hold the transmission of funds until they could give me a little more detail around what the group does. Mr. Porter said he wouldn't be swayed by suggestions the Central Coast region was a hotspot for UFO sightings. It's very hard to unpack cause and effect, he said. You tend to find a lot of sightings when you're funding UFO sighting groups. Official records show the department approved $2,645 for the UFO group in this year's volunteer grant program. The group received $2,994 in 2013. The Tuggerah Lakes UFO group has 822 members on Facebook and was created to share news, information, support friends and network in UFO matters as well as related topics. The ABC, it reports, has tried to make contact with the UFO group. This is Shelley Stocken. Thanks for having me in your ear holes.
From Matt Taylor, writing in the Central Coast Gosford Express Advocate newspaper on the 19th of May. Central Coast UFO group funding mystery. Federal minister calls for urgent review. A disbelieving federal minister has launched a probe into the X-file mystery of why taxpayers have forked out thousands of dollars for a Central Coast UFO group to conduct its out-of-this-world activities. Minister for Social Services, Christian Porter, this week called for an urgent review into his department's decision to approve a grant of $2,645 for Tuggerah Lakes UFO Group to, quote, do their important work, end quote, after it had received $2,994 in 2013. Quote, the Minister's office has been advised that this group was previously funded under the Labour government in 2013, and some of this grant goes to the transport costs of volunteers with a disability, end quote, a spokesman for Mr. Porter told the Express Advocate. Quote, however, the Minister is somewhat surprised at the nature of this particular volunteer group being funded through his grant program, and he has instructed his department to hold the transmission of funds pending a re-examination of the application, end quote. A Tuggerah Lakes UFO Group spokeswoman said the close encounter with a funding investigation was, quote, disappointing, end quote, but, quote, it's not the end of the world, end quote. Ask what the group, which has more than 800 Facebook members, used the funding for, she said, quote, we have elderly people we pick up and take to meetings, where they need projectors and microphones so everyone can see and hear what's going on. We also have outings at night checking for unusual activity, end quote. The Department of Social Services said on its website that, quote, the funding will help the UFO group's volunteers to do their important work. By sharing their experiences and knowledge with the community, the volunteers foster social inclusion and enrich the local region, end quote, it said. The Central Coast has long been a hotspot for UFO sightings. The 1994 Gosford UFO incident, where business owners, policemen and retired academics witnessed a large object beaming 4 or 5 bright lights into Brisbane water, made for national headlines. As an aside, Brisbane water is the body of water around the Gosford area on the Central Coast. The Tuggerah Lakes UFO Group spokeswoman says the truth is out there for the many locals who have since spotted unusual activity in the region. Quote, it's always hard to get a definite photo, end quote, she said. Quote, often people find it easier to speak about their experiences, end quote. Quizzed on how the public reacted to the UFO group, she said, quote, it's getting better, but some people think we're all crazy. We actually get people come out to our meetings from all walks of life. We're all open-minded to aliens being out there. When you read and hear the stories of UFO sightings, anything's possible, end quote. Gosford, 1994, X-Files still a mystery. It's one of Australia's most intriguing UFO cases. On New Year's Eve, 1994, police switchboards lit up with reports of an unidentified illuminated object over Brisbane water. Witnesses reported seeing, quote, a huge ball-shaped object with bright lights on the bottom, end quote, where it appeared to be sucking up water. Some believed the 4 or 5 beams of lights were turning the water into steam, while others described the water as frothing. Reports came in that night from respected members of the community, including police officers, doctors, teachers, nurses and lawyers. Police were sent out to investigate, but they soon found themselves chasing a, quote, strange metallic craft, end quote, back and forth across the bay. Officers said they came within 50 metres of the UFO and the, quote, craft would turn off its lights and shoot up skywards out of sight, end quote. Residents also reported their pets acting strangely, with dogs howling for no apparent reason. The mystery has never been explained. Joining me now on the line all the way from sunny Melbourne. Sunny Melbourne. Well, sunny one day, raining the next. It's the Australian Skeptics UFO expert, if there can be an expert into UFOs, Dr. Steve Roberts. Hello, Steve.
Good morning, Richard. How are you?
I'm very well. I'm
kind of baffled as to how somebody can be an expert in something that's unknown.
Yeah, it's true.
That's what they call me anyway, yeah.
Oh, well, we'll go with that at the moment. I'm quite well at the moment. I think I benefit from the secret hidden knowledge that the humanity has gained over the years from aliens. I think that's the way it works.
Yeah, the transistor and other stuff, I suppose. Yeah.
That's right. Now, we're looking at this interesting story today about government funding for a UFO group, but I kind of think there's more to this story than meets the eye. What's your take up on this?
UFO groups are social clubs in a great way because, actually the UFOs don't really exist. I mean, if you have a poetry circle, that's to be some poetry.
Yes.
But if you want a UFO group, you've only got stories of UFOs that have generally been seen by other people rather than by the people in the group itself. So it's just a sort of story appreciation group about UFOs, and it is a social group. And I've been in some of these myself, and it is a very, I wouldn't say that people are sort of pleasant in every time, but it is a big social scene you can be in on.
Yeah.
And you can have discussions and whatnot, and you often find there's a whole lot of true believers in the group that don't open their minds to things. But it is a social occasion you can go to, and it can be argued that if somebody's disabled and has difficulty going to a meeting about UFOs, it's not really the business of welfare groups what the meeting is about. The fact is somebody's disabled and has trouble getting there, and if they wish to go there should be assistance.
Yeah, it's interesting. I tend to agree, but there's two aspects to this. There's the money, which we don't know all the ins and outs of it, and it's not a huge amount of money. But on one aspect, there are people saying, "Oh, how can you waste it on something as ridiculous and outdated as UFOs?" But the flip side is, well, if it's a benefit to people, as you say, to get out of the house and help them socialize, meet other people, then that's another aspect to it.
It was some thousands of dollars, 3,000 or 6,000 or something. But I don't know exactly what that was given for. It's a lot of money to help people go out, actually. But I don't really know what it was really applied to. But then on the other side, $6,000 is, quote, only $6,000, not very much on the budget of things. So it's not really worth the minister's time to worry that much about it compared to other social causes that waste hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, yes, that's absolutely true. But I guess it's also the sort of story that the media love, and even the Skeptic Zone's covering it, because it's got to do with UFOs. And I guess, what do you think? Do you think there's a lot of nostalgia now about these things? Because they're hardly ever discussed.
A lot of division about UFOs since 1997. The first UFO sighting of the modern era was in 1947.
Yeah.
And the Roswell Hoo Ha was 1948, which was only actually dug up in about 1980 by Stanton Friedman. Nobody really had much time for that story before. But if you look at the UFO movement now or ask any UFO fan, they'll say, this all began in 1947, 48. And there was stuff around Roswell around that time when the Americans actually testing, and actually still are testing around there. There's stealth bombers and cruise missiles and secret weapons and God knows what. It always was secret around there. And what happened was the 50th anniversary came around in 1997, and the media had to think, okay, it's the 50th anniversary of the first UFO sighting. Do we report this, this subject has reared its head. Do we report this seriously or with derision or with humour or how do we do it? Do we say these people are lunatics or there really is an issue? And they decided to report it with a sort of benevolent humour.
Yeah.
And ever since then, UFOs have been viewed with kind of benevolent humour because the UFO sightings have died out. I mean, with the advent of mobile phones, especially mobile phones with cameras in them.
Yes.
There just are no UFO sightings anymore.
They're pretty scarce, I must say. They are pretty scarce.
That kind of tells you something. So ever since 1997, UFOs have been a subject for mild, sort of slightly mild insanity or quirkiness or eccentricity. And, they're harmless. Nobody ever got killed by a UFO or by believing in them.
I suppose you're right.
So it's moved from there to be a metaphor for, especially in politics, to be a metaphor for insanity. We We had a science minister in Victoria once who believed in UFOs, and this was often quoted. We've got a science minister who believes in UFOs.
Yeah.
Well, that closes that issue then, it was said. So I think when politicians or welfare agencies get caught handing out money for flying saucer clubs, there's a very clear sort of view of division about this. But as I said, there are social considerations. If somebody has trouble getting out and about, then they should be helped to get out and about, for whatever reason.
Yeah,
it's not really on the welfare people to judge why they're getting out and about.
Yeah, there is that it's really a double-edged issue. I agree completely. You and I like to get out and do social activities more to do with the science-based areas. Although, of course, the UFO believers I've certainly encountered at paranormal conferences and whatever would insist that they are the true scientific people.
Well, then we all have closed minds about it.
We all have closed minds, yes.
I used to be a UFO believer years ago, but I unfortunately looked at the evidence with a more open mind and thought, well, maybe, is this really true? Is this really corroborated and so on? But people are free to believe whatever they wish and pursue whatever they wish, and it's not really for welfare organisations to censure what people go out to. Now, there are some groups out there who are harmful, neo-Nazis and anti-vaccination maniacs and so on. But even for those, stopping people going to the meetings is sort of like censoring, their broadcasts or whatever. It's a bit of a free speech issue in a way.
Yeah. So, these things aren't as black and white as people would like to point out. Again, we're just going to have to follow this story to see what the minister or the department decide to do. I wouldn't be surprised if they have their funding curtailed because of the negative media interest in it at the moment. But then again, because it's getting a lot of interest, maybe more people will join their UFO club. Who knows?
Well, there is that. We want it for free publicity. I think the funding will have to get curtailed because it is such a clear-cut issue in political speak. Yeah. But on the other hand, the UFO Club should be able to sort of milk that for publicity for all it's worth, and eventually maybe get a story. I was denied attending a UFO meeting because the government stopped me. Just imagine that. Imagine the hoo-ha of that. Yeah.
It's the conspiracy, Steve. It must
part of the conspiracy. Yeah. Well, I hope this broadcast gets out, Richard. You're not struck by fall under a bus or something, or
I hope so,
struck by a meteorite. Yeah.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, look, Steve, keep looking for those UFOs. You are regarded as one of Australia's top UFO experts, but again, we get back to saying, how can you be an expert into something that has not been proven to exist?
No, I know all the stories, and people say, what about Rendlesham Forest then? I know that story and what happened there. I've learned all that stuff. I could have been doing something more fun instead, but there it is.
You could. Maybe spinners. Maybe this spinner craze. Maybe they came from alien technology.
Oh, they did, yeah. We didn't have those until the aliens landed in the desert and said, look at the spinner. Ooh.
I happen to know that you have a collection of spinners now.
Oh, I might have, yes. We bought one on the market. They're sold commercially. I got mine from Indiegogo, but we went to Paddy's Market and there they were there. So Free Enterprise is ahead of the game.
Well, if that's not proof of alien technology, I don't know what is. But Steve Roberts, all the way from Melbourne and Victoria, thank you very much.
No problem, Richard.
The wait is over. Tickets are now available for Skepticon, the 2017 Australian Skeptics National Convention. The skeptical highlight of the year. Our 33rd convention is being organised by Think Inc. and will be held on November the 18th and 19th, 2017 at the City Recital Hall, Angel Place, Sydney. This promises to be a great event with speakers including science media star Dr. Carl Kruszelnicki, of course, astronomer Alan Duffy, YouTube super debunker Captain Disillusion, comedian and MC Lawrence Leung, former naturopath and now critic of Alt Med Britt Hermes, doctor and TV personality Dr. Brad Mackay, award-winning documentary maker Sonia Pemberton, Walkley Award-winning journalist Kathy Marks, and Dr. Cum Magician Dr. Viram Sharma. More great speakers will be announced soon, as well as news of the convention dinner on the night of Saturday the 18th of November. Single day and full weekend tickets are available. skepticonaustralia.org.au. Now, you may well remember that in January this year, the 22nd of January, on Skeptic Zone episode number 431, we covered the story of the Australian Skeptics standing by a bent spoon nomination for the National Institute of Complementary Medicine. The bent spoon is our annual award for the most preposterous piece of paranormal or pseudoscientific biffle. In other words, people or organizations or products out there that we feel or people feel who let us know certainly do not live up to the paranormal or pseudoscientific claims that they are making. The National Institute of Complementary Medicine was not very pleased at receiving this nomination, and they wrote to the Australian Skeptics to express their displeasure and asked that we withdraw the nomination. The Australian Skeptics, of course, said no. And just this week it's come to our attention that the Australian Journal of Pharmacy has taken up this story. And you can find this report at the website of the Australian Journal of Pharmacy under the title of Unproven Issues. Complementary medicine's body under fire over evidence-based and environmental issues. The National Institute of Complementary Medicines is once again under fire for promoting unproven products, as well as having inconsistent views on the use of endangered species in traditional Chinese medicines. The Australian Skeptics have renewed their campaign against the NICM, accusing it of, quote, apparent endorsement of unproven traditional Chinese treatments, end quote. In an article in the most recent edition of The Skeptic, the association's quarterly journal, the NICM was also accused of, quote, directly or indirectly, end quote, promoting or supporting the use of endangered animals in traditional Chinese medicine, TCM. The latest criticism follows comments by NICM head professor Alan Bensusan backing the work NICM does, highlighting the, quote, Nobel Prize-winning research into Artemisium annua, a good example of the recent validation of a traditional medicine used for centuries in managing malaria, end quote. Professor Bensusan told MJA Insight the research highlighted the work NICM was undertaking. However, the Australian Skeptics article claims that, quote, unfortunately for Bensusan, his claims for the efficacy of A. annua is totally contradicted by the World Health Organization, which said in a position paper for the Global Malaria Program that it, quote, does not recommend the use of A. annua plant material in any form, including tea, for the treatment or prevention of malaria, end quote. Quote, the amount of artemisinin in A. annua is extremely variable, which is why the World Health Organization does not recommend the use of the plant itself as a treatment, end quote, the article said. In addition, the article raised issues over links on the NICM website to a TCM herbal database that gives, quote, helpful information, end quote, on the medical use of rhino horn, the clinical uses and indications of which it gives as, quote, clears heat, relieves fire toxicity, cools blood, arrests tremors, arrhythmia, nosebleed, vomiting blood, diarrhea, convulsions, manic behavior, loss of consciousness, end quote. In February, when this link was pointed out to the NICM, it was removed from their website. But the Australian Skeptics say there are also links between NICM and research citing the use of products containing ingredients sourced from endangered animals such as Indian rhinoceros and Chinese forest musk deer. Professor Bensusan has previously stated that, quote, the TCM profession and the community should absolutely reject any use of endangered animals and plant species in Chinese medicines, end quote. Last year, Professor Bensusan asked that his organisation's nomination for the Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Award for 2016 be withdrawn. In a letter to the association, Professor Bensusan said NICM does not, quote, defend the use of any complementary medicines unsupported by evidence. The focus of our research institute excludes many forms of complementary medicines based on this notion, end quote. And that story comes to us from ajp.com.au, written by Chris Brooker, published on the 18th of May 2017. And you can find out more about the Australian Skeptics Bent Spoon Award by visiting www.skeptics.com.au. And if you feel so inclined, you can nominate an individual, an organisation, a product for the Bent Spoon. The criteria is that they should be Australian-based. We can't go nominating people from around the world, although it's not a bad idea. Sometimes we'd like to. But basically, Australian-based products and people and services. And you feel free to nominate somebody for that award. We can review your nomination, and who knows, it may appear on the website, and your nomination may prove to be the winning one, or the losing one, depending on how you look at it. Skeptics.com.au.
Hi, this is Ben Radford.
And this is Pasquale Romero from the Squaring the Strange podcast.
Every week, my co-host and I cast a skeptical eye at a different topic.
Monsters, ghosts, demons, mysteries, and even current events are dissected and discussed with a fun, unscripted, and skeptical take that you're sure to enjoy.
Find us at squaringthestrange.com, iTunes, or on your favorite podcast platform.
And now, direct from the cafe at Australia's Science Channel, it's Brew Ha Ha with Casey Harrigan.
Sometimes humanity makes mistakes, and sometimes we accidentally make a force field around our planet without realising. Ever since we've been using very low-frequency radio transmissions to say what's up to submarines, we've created this sort of radio wave space bubble. NASA just discovered that it sits about 1,000 kilometres from Earth, which, for reference, is about 600 kilometres further than the International Space Station. To add another layer of happy to this accident, our force field sits right at the inner edge of the Van Allen radiation belt. If it wasn't for our magnetic field, radiation belts like this, as well as the sun, would bombard our planet with charged particles and cause everything from health problems to satellite interference. Our very low-frequency bubble gives us an extra layer of protection from radiation. Now we know it's there, we can figure out exactly how protective it is, and maybe even figure out how to use it to push away charged particles during severe space weather. So, to anyone whose job it is to communicate with submarines, go ahead and have a nice, long chat. Humanity thanks you.
For more Brew Ha Ha and Australian science, head for www.australiascience.tv. Save the date, Sunday, June the 11th, for Skeptical, the day-long Northern California Conference of Science and Skepticism. Featuring Eugenie C. Scott, Science and Pseudoscience of Race; Brian Dunning, Challenging Popular Assumptions; Andrew Fracknoy, Pseudoscience, Advice for the 2017 Solar Eclipse; Edward Wasserman, Fake News; Judith Horstman, Myths of the Brain; Marty Klein, Pornography and Porn Panic; plus Science Comedy Magic with Luigi and Zavino. Register online at skepticalcon.org. Skeptical at the Shattuck Hotel, Alston Way, Berkeley, California, Sunday, June the 11th. Now here's a little update from the Australian Skeptics website, www.skeptics.com.au, by Tim Mendham, published on the 10th of May, under the title of Pro-Vaccine Measures in the 2017 Budget. The anti-vaccination lobby will not be pleased with the 2017 federal budget. Following on its no jab, no pay policy, the government has decided that families who fail to immunise their children and who fail to get a health check on their 4-year-olds will lose $28 a fortnight from the family tax benefit. This is part of the policy of increasing national immunisation coverage rates and improving the effectiveness of the national immunisation program increase. The aim is that the immunisation coverage rates in children at 5 years of age should be increased from an estimated 92.2% of children immunised in 2016-17 to at least 94% of children by 2020-21. The government says it will commit $14.1 million over 4 years through the National Immunisation Program to provide ongoing catch-up vaccines for almost 375,000 Australians aged 10 to 19 years and more than 8,000 adult refugees and humanitarian entrants. In addition, the government will launch a $5.5 million awareness campaign over 3 years to improve awareness and uptake of immunisation for children less than 5 years of age. Regular reminders will be sent to parents covering the importance of immunising children and protecting public health. And we notice, there's a comment published on the 14th of May on that page from David Smith. And David Smith writes, "You blokes are going to give scientists a bad name. Neither you nor any doctors know how each vaccine is produced, purified, activated, inactivated, how successful or not such activation actions are, the constituents of each batch, batch control, and the specific molecular actions that occur in vitro from the administration of this multiple protein/adjunct mix. What you do have is critical trial results provided to you by the manufacturers, and you call yourself scientists. I am a biochemist, and I would not have a clue whether vaccines are as safe as claimed, and neither would you. So kindly stop this Inquisition-type hunt of anti-vaxxers, most of whom are more correctly described as ex-vaxxers. Your embarrassment will be extreme if it turns out down the line that some of the plethora of the vaccines in the market are not as safe as currently believed. Leave them alone and concentrate on something more important." Thank you, David Smith. Your comments are noted. And if you wish to leave a comment, just visit skeptics.com.au.
Hej svenska skeptiker! Du vet väl att vetenskap och folkbildning inte bara är trogna anhängare av The Skeptic Zone utan också arrangerar föredrag, pop science quiz och skeptikerträffar runt om i Sverige. Gå in på www.vof.se för att spana in vad våra 7 olika lokalföreningar runt om i landet har på gång. Och om du bor i en stad där det inte finns någon lokalförening, varför inte starta en själv? Jag pratar med dig, Umeå. Hello all skeptics in Sweden! I'm sure you already know that the Swedish Skeptics Association not only is a big fan of the Skeptic Zone, but that we also organize lectures, pop science quiz and skeptics in the pub all over the country. Go to www.vof.se to see what our 7 local chapters are up to. And if you live in a place where there is no local chapter, why not start one yourself? I'm talking to you, Umeå.
Over the last few weeks, a very disturbing story has been unfolding of a 4-year-old boy, quite ill with cerebral palsy, being denied proper medical attention due to the beliefs of his mother, it would seem. And this culminated just last night here in Australia, with the boy being removed from his parents, or his mother at least, in order for him to receive proper care, because it seems the mother and her associates are of the conspiratorial mindset. In other words, that they've discovered the right method to treat this sick boy, which involves medical cannabis. And I'm not saying anything for or against that, particularly at the moment, and organic food, but more importantly, that what the proper medical authorities are recommending to their mind is nothing more than dangerous chemicals and pharmaceutical conspiracy. An overview here from Jane Hansen, who is writing in the Sunday Telegraph, published on the 21st of May. Disabled boy in danger of malnutrition removed from parents. Child protection authorities have removed a severely disabled 4-year-old from his parents because the boy was deemed at risk of serious harm due to malnutrition. Last year, his parents stopped the prescribed total nutrition formula diet fed through a tube into the boy's stomach in favour of a, quote, natural diet of pureed fruit and vegetables, end quote, and cannabis oil. The child has been under the care of a struck-off doctor, but his weight plummeted. He was taken to John Hunter Hospital on the 1st of May, and blood tests showed the child to have, quote, critical abnormal levels of potassium, end quote, consistent with malnutrition. The parents failed to return him for a checkup by the 17th of May, prompting child protection authorities to act. On Friday at 5 p.m, 4 police officers and 2 family and community services workers arrived at where he was staying in Newcastle. Quote, we had him barricaded in a room with his mother, end quote, his doctor said. Quote, we agreed to take him to hospital with his mother, where the doctors cleared him to go back home. Then Child Protection stepped in and the mother was sprayed with capsicum spray and thrown into a paddy wagon. It was a disgrace, end quote. The doctor said the child had been on potassium replacement therapy. He rejected criticism the child's diet was inappropriate. Quote, the child has malabsorption problems and he has terrible reflux, end quote, the doctor said. The parents and anti-vaccine campaigners have taken up his cause, believe vaccination caused him to develop his medical problems. The child's seizures began before he was vaccinated. And that little update comes to us from Jane Hansen, writing in the Sunday Telegraph. And here, courtesy of the 9 Network, the 9 News, is a report on the situation.
It's another chapter in the sad fight over the medical treatment of a 4-year-old boy with cerebral palsy.
Police have got him. No. Come on, back off. Oh, God. We've just been pepper sprayed.
Police arresting the boy's mother after she tried to stop doctors at a Newcastle hospital from treating him. The young boy at the centre of the medical stoush can't be named for legal reasons, but it's the second time in less than a month his mother has clashed with authorities over her son receiving traditional treatment versus unconventional medicine.
We are concerned, like as in...
Who was you? You
don't know Jack.
Just 3 weeks ago, Queensland Police issued an Amber Alert after the boy's parents took him from Lady Salento Hospital and drove to Newcastle before police found him. Last night, New South Wales authorities came to collect the boy at a church that promotes medicinal cannabis and an organic diet.
No warrant. What's on ground we have an order for removal?
That court order alleged the 4-year-old suffered medical neglect, a blood test showing the boy had critically abnormal potassium levels, which can place him at risk of life-threatening cardiac arrhythmia. His mother has since been released without charge, but her son is now in care. Shannon Marshall McCormack, 9.
As you could hear in that report, the screams of the parents and the other people involved. And I'm not surprised because we've got 2 issues going on here. We've got one, which is the normal concern a parent would have for their child regardless, and that can easily bubble over into hysteria if a parent thinks their child is in imminent danger, and that's absolutely understandable. I think any parent could understand where they're coming from there. But that combined with what they're being fed by the conspiracy theories, the anti-vaccination crowd and the one world government, and all chemicals are evil and pharmaceuticals are out to get you, the doctors are puppets of the large pharma, all this sort of thing. All that wrapped up and combined with the angst and the worry that the parents have, well, this is the result. At least for the moment, the boy is in proper care, and we will bring you any relevant updates as they happen.
From the dawn of time, one podcast has unlocked the secrets of science and technology to enrich the lives of billions. And now, after a year where they've unlocked the golden age of knowledge, they're about to hit warp speed and go stratospheric.
Wait, hold up.
On Oh No, Ross and Carrie, we don't make extraordinary claims, we investigate them.
We go undercover with fringe religious groups, investigate paranormal claims, and we participate in pseudoscientific medical treatments and then report our findings to you.
And yes, we've even investigated Scientology.
Shh, Ross, shh. New episodes every month at MaximumFun.org.
Oh No, Ross and Carrie. They show up so you don't have to.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone, and thank you once again, and as always, once again and always, to those wonderful people who support the Skeptic Zone by chipping in on our website, skepticzone.tv, directly via micropayments with PayPal or via Patreon. And the links are both there. You can do it either way. You can also just send in a little donation if you so wish, or once off. Some people like to do that. Some people chip in $1 a week, some people $5 a week. And as I say, it's like little drops in the bathtub. Drop, 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 drop. The bathtub fills up slowly but surely, and it means we can do things like produce the show and afford microphones, and sometimes we need a little extra cash for little outings to bring you reports and to help my reporters. It all goes to helping keep the Skeptic Zone on the internet, and in some cases on the air, because I know there are some radio stations which do use segments of the Skeptic Zone, and any producers out there at radio stations who like to use the odd interview or whatever from the Skeptic Zone, you're more than welcome to do so. Just drop me a line, let me know, and I'm sure that will be fine. It's nice to get credit. But for this week, from Sydney, Australia, this is Richard Saunders, signing off. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for contacts, an archive of all episodes since 2008, and our online store. Please support the Skeptic Zone by following us on Twitter @SkepticZone, liking us on Facebook, and leaving a review on iTunes. You can also show your support by subscribing via PayPal for as little as 99 cents a week. The Skeptic Zone is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics Inc. or any other skeptical organisation.
I'm Willow, and when I grow up, I want to be a marine biologist.
And what are you going to do when you're a marine biologist?
Study
Study what?
things in the ocean.
What are some of the things in the ocean? Stop. What are some of the things in the ocean you'd like to study? Don't get dizzy. What are some of the things in the ocean you'd like to study?
Starfish.
Yeah, what else?
Fish.
Yeah?
Whales.
Yeah?
Eels.
Eels?
Turtles.
That sounds like a very good thing to be, a marine biologist.
I feel